That while big money is flowing into NFTs, the market could represent a price bubble, with the risk of major losses if the hype dies down, and ushering in what one expert called a crypto winter. And there's no virtual overcoat to protect against that.
And that's the latest in business. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Pam. Investigators are trying to figure out what caused a deadly train crash in Egypt. It happened just north of Cairo and is the latest of several railway accidents to hit the country.
At least 11 people were killed and nearly 100 injured on Sunday in a train accident in Egypt's Kaliubia province north of Cairo, according to a statement by the health ministry. Eyewitness Medat Abdel Raouf stood in disbelief.
هو ما نعرفش حصل ايه بالظبط. العربيات كلها طلعت على ارض الخط. ناس كتير ماتت. وناس كتير لحد دلوقتي تحت العربيات مش عارفين نطلعها. مش عارفين نقول ولا نتكلم فيه اصلا. الواحد تعب نفسيا اقسم بالله.
Egyptian National Railways released a statement that said the train was heading from Cairo to the Nile Delta city of Mansoura when 4 carriages derailed at 1:54 p.m., about 25 miles north of Cairo. The cause of the accident is being investigated. More than 50 ambulances took the injured to 3 hospitals in the province. The derailing is the latest of several recent railway crashes in Egypt. At least 20 people were killed and nearly 200 were injured in March when 2 trains collided near Tata, about 275 miles south of Cairo. 15 people were injured this month when 2 train carriages derailed near Minya al-Qam city. Egypt's transportation minister has faced calls to resign from some Egyptians on social media. He has rejected these and vowed to keep working on developing the aging rail network.
Coming up, joyful reunions as Australia and New Zealand begin their travel bubble. And later, U.S. summit later this week could be a make-or-break moment for climate action.
Japan is facing its biggest challenges since World War II: aging population, falling birth rate, shrinking labor force. Challenges that my generation has come to grips and find solutions. Innovate, that's what Japanese are known for. Foreigners, once shunned, are now welcome with open arms. Nothing is taboo anymore, and we have the resilience and resources to face the future.
Five athletes at the top of their game, training hard for the pinnacle event of their sports. But COVID-19 had other ideas.
In news just in, the Tokyo Olympics are to be postponed.
I was a little bit annoyed because that really messed up a lot of plans.
Everyone was uncertain.
We were actually relieved. I was a little bit upset and frustrated.
But preparations for the Olympics and the Paralympics carried on.
Working a lot with my coach, fixing a few technical errors here and there.
Trainings and competitions are going on in Europe, waiting to get back to Portugal.
Well done. 5-4-5.
Oh,
Yay.
baby.
Well done, buddy.
Every time we take a break, we technically have to restart.
Gunning for the Olympics and the Paralympics. Watch Tokyo Dreams on demand at cne.asia.
Macet, an Indonesian word that describes Jakarta's notorious traffic congestion. The introduction of the MRT is a definite game changer, and hopefully Macet will be a thing of the past for Southeast Asia's biggest capital.
Safari Smile, CNA, Jakarta.
Updating this hour's top stories. India's capital Delhi enters a 6-day strict lockdown as the country's health system crumbles under the weight of record daily COVID-19 infections. A setback to Thailand's plans to reopen its tourist hotspots. The country struggling with a third wave of COVID-19 and a shortage of vaccines. Plus, Myanmar security forces violently dispersed crowds in Mandalay. Japan seeking the release of a journalist arrested amid the protests. Airports across Australia and New Zealand are buzzing with activity as the two countries open their long-awaited travel bubble. Passengers are able to travel between the countries without having to serve a quarantine period, and hundreds of families are being reunited for the first time in more than a year.
Oh, it's very emotional. I've been waiting so long. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. I have no words. I'm just so grateful that I could come back. I'm like shaking right now.
It's been a very long time and so much life has happened since then, and it's so nice to see each other.
The border opening is expected to help boost economic recovery for both countries. With the travel bubble up and running, Air New Zealand expects to operate 70% of its pre-pandemic capacity, while Qantas and its low-cost Jetstar plan to operate as much as 83%. Mike Rahul tells us more.
And apart from a few delays as travellers, and I guess the airlines got used to the new systems, it was pretty smooth sailing, or flying, should I say. And travellers were treated like royalty. Air New Zealand, for example, ordered 25,000 bottles of champagne to celebrate with bubbles for the bubble. Now, Air New Zealand claims they've had 5,000 passengers travel off both sides of the Tasman. There's been 15 flights scheduled for today. That's going to ramp up very quickly. We can anticipate there'll be 400 a week going between Australia and New Zealand within weeks. I think if this does go well, we'll definitely see, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said today, the next step will be to open travel bubbles with our close Pacific Island nations that we're very close with, like Samoa and the Cook Islands. Now, beyond that, there's a lot of risk associated with it. There is talk that Australia and Singapore could open up a bubble in July. Now, Jacinda Ardern has said that could open up risks, because one of the strengths of our quarantine-free travel with Australia and New Zealand is there's a consistency in the way that the policies and processes are done. If these don't align with new countries, New Zealand may consider closing down the Trans-Tasman bubble. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, Australia had previously allowed New Zealanders to arrive without going into quarantine, but New Zealand didn't. Brianna Piazza reports from Melbourne on why, for some, today is a monumental Monday.
Flights between Australian cities and New Zealand are heavily booked as many people jump at the opportunity to reunite with loved ones or take their first overseas holiday since the pandemic started. Australians are banned from leaving the country without permission from the federal government. But the start of the long-awaited Trans-Tasman travel bubble today means Australians can travel freely to New Zealand. They also won't have to undergo mandatory quarantine upon their return to Australia, unlike those returning from other destinations. Australian airports are being divided into two zones to separate people returning from New Zealand and other countries to reduce the risk of cross-infection. Leaders of the two countries can decide to suspend the travel bubble arrangement at any time if there's a COVID-19 outbreak. But that hasn't deterred people who were eager to get on the first flight out of Melbourne this morning.
We're just going to get away and get a good break, and this was a really opportune time, so fantastic to go.
I'm so excited. I'm travelling to New Zealand because that's where my son and his family live, and I calculated it's 563 days since I've seen them.
So we've been trying to do business remotely for 18 months nearly now, and I used to travel nearly every 3 weeks, so first flight out, see the customer, see our product and get back on the ground.
New Zealanders accounted for 1.3 million arrivals to Australia in 2019, contributing about $2 billion to the Australian economy. It comes just in time for both countries' snow seasons after ski operators suffered heavy blows in